They warned the town about him, and nothing happened. So a child made a decision that adults refused to make. Before we proceed, don't forget to subscribe for more chilling tales. Drop your location in the comments. We want to know where you're listening from. This is Silence After the Screams, your weekly dose of spine and chilling true crime. Like and subscribe so you never miss what's coming next. They said he was a predator, and the town already knew his name. But knowing never turned into protection, and that failure was where everything began. A teenage girl had spoken up first, shaking and terrified, explaining what he had done to her while adults listened with folded arms and careful faces, nodding as if sympathy alone could undo what had already been taken from her. Reports were made, whispers spread, and the word alleged wrapped itself around the truth like a shield, protecting the man who walked free. While the victims learned what it meant to be ignored, parents warned their children quietly, not loudly enough to force action, and life went on in a way that felt cruelly normal. Because injustice is often loud only to the people trapped inside it. Among those watching was a teenage boy who listened to the stories and felt something tighten in his chest every time the man's name was mentioned, because fear does not always turn into silence. And sometimes it turns into anger that has nowhere safe to go. The boy watched adults hesitate and systems stall, watched excuses pile up higher than accountability. And he began to believe something dangerous, something that grows when people feel abandoned. The idea that if no one else would stop the harm, then maybe someone had to. The night it happened did not feel heroic or righteous. And it did not feel planned in the way movies pretend these moments are planned, because it was messy, emotional, and soaked in panic long before anything caught fire. The man was confronted, and fear filled the space between them. Sharp and uncontrollable, because when accusations turn into face-to-face reality, there is no script to follow and no safe way out. Words were exchanged that could never be taken back, and rage surged forward faster than reason, driven by every story that had been ignored and every warning that had gone unanswered. Violence broke out suddenly, not cleanly and not with certainty. Because real violence is chaotic and terrifying even for the person who initiates it. Pain was real on both sides. Panic escalated, and in those moments, the boy was no longer thinking about justice or consequences, only about stopping something that felt like it had already gone on too long. When it was over, nothing felt resolved. Fear rushed in where anger had been, heavier and colder, as the weight of what had just happened began to settle. Because there is a moment after violence where reality crashes down all at once, and it does not care what your intentions were. The decision to hide what had happened came next, not as a clever plan, but as a desperate reaction to terror. Because panic convinces people that distance can erase guilt, and that fire can erase truth. The body was moved, the night swallowed the evidence, and flames were lit in the hope that destruction would mean silence. But fire has a way of drawing attention rather than burying it, and the smell carried farther than expected. By morning, rumors had already begun. A man was missing, a fire had burned too hot, and people started asking questions that no one was ready to answer. Because what the town would soon have to face was not just a death, but the uncomfortable question of whether justice had failed so completely that a child believed violence was the only remaining option. And that question was only just beginning. By the time daylight arrived, the story no longer belonged to the people involved, because towns have a way of claiming tragedy and reshaping it into something easier to argue about than to understand. The fire scene drew attention first, because smoke always does, and investigators arrived to find remains that told a violent story without explaining how it began, forcing everyone to fill in the gaps with assumptions instead of certainty. The man's name spread fast, and so did the rumors about who he was and what he had done. Because once a label like predator attaches itself to someone, it becomes louder than evidence and harder to separate from emotion. The teenage boy did not run far. not because he felt safe, but because fear kept him frozen in place, replaying the night over and over again, hearing every word, feeling every moment where things could have stopped but did not. When police questioned him, his youth was obvious in the way his voice shook and the way he struggled to explain thoughts that had never been fully formed before they turned into action. News traveled faster than facts, and soon the town split into sides that did not feel equal, because some people focused on the victim's past while others focused on the boy's age, and very few focused on the system that had failed long before either of them reached that moment. Conversations became arguments, arguments became accusations, and the truth grew harder to see beneath the noise. Support poured in from unexpected places, not because people agreed on what had happened, but because they recognized the familiar pattern of warnings, ignored until consequences arrived too late. Others reacted with outrage, demanding punishment without hesitation, insisting that fear and anger could never justify what had been done, even if the harm that came before had been real. The boy was arrested, and the image of him being led away lingered in the town's collective memory, because there is something deeply unsettling about seeing someone so young at the center of something so final. His family struggled to speak publicly, caught between defending someone they loved and confronting a reality they did not recognize. As the investigation continued, details surfaced slowly and unevenly, each one adding pressure instead of clarity, because every new piece of information raised another question that no one seemed prepared to answer honestly. Had the warnings been taken seriously? Had procedures been followed? Had the right people acted when they were supposed to? The night might never have happened at all. Instead, the town found itself forced to confront its own reflection, uncomfortable and fractured, because it is easier to condemn a single act of violence than to admit how many chances there were to prevent it. The boy sat in custody, alone with his thoughts, while adults debated his fate as though it were an abstract problem rather than a human life unraveling in real time. And beneath every argument, beneath every headline and opinion, there was a growing awareness that the story was not as simple as anyone wanted it to be, because justice does not feel clean when it arrives too late, and it feels even worse when it never arrives at all. What no one realized yet was that the most disturbing part of the story had not been uncovered, and that the line between guilt and responsibility was about to become far more complicated than anyone expected. As the case moved forward, the urgency shifted from shock to consequence, because once the fire burned out and the noise faded, the town was left with a single, unbearable question that no one wanted to answer out loud. What happens when the system fails so completely that a child believes violence is the only way to stop violence? The courtroom became the new battleground, not because it offered clarity, but because it forced everyone to confront the night they had spent avoiding responsibility. Prosecutors spoke of laws and boundaries, of lines that could not be crossed no matter the circumstances, while others spoke quietly about fear, about warnings ignored, and about how long danger had been allowed to exist unchecked. The boy sat there listening, smaller than he looked in the headlines, carrying the weight of a decision made in terror, while strangers debated whether his actions were evil or inevitable. His face showed exhaustion more than defiance, because whatever anger once fueled him had long since been replaced by the slow realization that there was no outcome that would feel like justice. Evidence was presented carefully, piece by piece, painting a picture that felt incomplete no matter how much was added to it, because no timeline could capture what years of fear due to a person, and no legal argument could fully explain why adults had been warned and done nothing. Every testimony reopened wounds for people who had already learned that speaking up did not always lead to protection. Outside the courtroom, the town continued to argue with itself, divided between outrage and sympathy, between punishment and understanding, because it is easier to pick a side than to accept that everyone failed in different ways. Some demanded the harshest sentence possible, insisting that nothing could excuse what had happened, while others asked quietly why so much attention came only after someone was dead. The boy's future narrowed with every passing day, shaped by decisions he could no longer undo and by systems that had already proven unreliable, leaving him suspended between childhood and consequences meant for adults. His family watched helplessly, knowing that no verdict could undo the night or restore what had been lost on either side. As the trial moved closer to its conclusion, something unsettling became impossible to ignore, because the deeper people looked, the clearer it became that the story they thought they were judging was missing something essential. Certain details did not align, certain assumptions felt too convenient, and certain questions remained unanswered despite the hours of testimony. The focus had been placed entirely on one moment of violence, but the shadows around it were growing longer, stretching backward into decisions that had been made, quietly, and forward into consequences no one was ready to face. And just when the town believed it understood what this case was about, just when it thought the lines between victim and villain had been drawn clearly enough to reach a verdict, a realization began to surface that threatened to unravel everything. Because the truth was not finished yet, and when it finally came into the light, it would force everyone to confront what they had ignored, what they had allowed, and what justice actually meant in a world where protection arrived too late. The question was no longer who was guilty. The question was who had been responsible all along, and that answer was still waiting.